These chairs are really squishy, so if we slide off at any point, I promise it's not because we've had a load of beers or similar. So, welcome John. Thank you so much for joining us. You're a webmaster trends analyst at Google, and I know you spend a huge amount of time and effort answering questions from the SEO community. For that, we are very, very grateful. But I'm embarrassed to admit that I don't know a lot about your role at Google, beyond answering our questions. Could you talk a bit about what your responsibilities there are?
Sure. I don't know where to start. So we basically try to connect the internal search teams with all of the people externally who are making great websites, and try to make sure that information flows in both directions. On the one hand, if we make changes, that we let you all know as quickly as we can. Sometimes maybe a little bit too quickly. But also,
we'll come on to that.
But also to get feedback from you all. So in particular to see where things are breaking, where things are confusing, where you get stuck, where you end up making something really weird just for the thought of like, maybe Google wants it this way. And all of that feedback is really useful for the engineering team. So we try to communicate in both directions. In general, engineers like to work on their small projects, and they tend not to go out and talk with, I don't know, the interesting and crazy world of SEO and webmasters. So we're trying to be in between to guide information back and forth.
Okay, cool. So, what does success look like in a role like this?
I don't know. I think that's always tricky. My personal success metric is not getting fired. I've managed so far. I don't know how, but I think that's okay for the moment. We'll see after this session.
You're going to be grand. You're going to be grand. Also, I'll hire you afterwards if you like.
Okay. Okay. Good. No, I think so. Our general idea is we would like to see webmasters, publishers, people who make content online be happy with what they're doing and be happy kind of with this deal that they have with Google, where it's like they allow us to crawl their content and we show it in the search results, we send traffic to their websites, and kind of this general relationship in the ecosystem.
Yeah.
And that, to my mind, is something that's almost not measurable. So we come out with all kinds of crazy metrics to try to figure out like how can we measure how happy people are with regards to Google in the whole kind of content ecosystem. But I don't really have any fancy metrics that I'm so confident in that I'd say like this is exactly how you do it.
Sure. Is there any stuff within this role that you'd like to do differently or improve in the future?
Do differently or improve in the future. I think that's also tricky because we try to be as direct as possible when changes happen to let you know about that, to inform you ahead of time. We try to work with the internal engineering team so that we know about these things as early as possible. And that's, I think the one area where we always struggle with is making sure that we're in the right place at the right time internally so that when changes happen or are planned, that we can tell people externally ahead of time.
Because, so how many, obviously you do a bunch of this and Gary does a bunch of this, but like in terms of proportionally, do you feel like there are enough people with your sort of role or your sort of responsibility at Google?
I think there are definitely not enough people. So I'd really love to have more people talking with webmasters and publishers and creating content, because there are just so many questions out there. I mean, I was doing questions before, and it's like there's one person after another coming with unique questions. So when I started the office hours hangouts, I thought maybe after like half a year or a year, I'd be through all of these questions. But it's like there are always new questions. There's always something confusing.
Sure.
So it would be great to have more people. So I hope we can get more people on the team and get them ramped up and comfortable talking with more folks externally too.
Cool, cool. How do you think, other than the more people thing, which I think we would strongly advocate for as well, we would love that, I think, as a community, how do you think your role might change, like a year from now? Will it look very different?
How it might change? I think that's tricky because it depends a lot on what all is happening internally as well. Mm-hmm. One shift that I'm noticing quite a bit is kind of the split between the more technical SEO side and the less technical side, where I don't think either side is more or less valuable. I think both sides are really important, but I think there's a stronger shift happening in that both of these areas are kind of growing on their own, especially the more technical side, where I see us talking more and more with front-end developers mm-hmm. rather than just SEOs.
Yeah.
And I see SEOs sometimes like, you shouldn't be talking with developers, that's like my job. But on the other hand, we see so many developers make so many basic mistakes mm-hmm. where I know SEOs struggle to get things working, so that at least like make it so that Google can read these pages. Mm-hmm. And those are the kind of things that are really hard sometimes. So I see a shift that maybe we do more technical things or more things more like online marketing related, kind of diverging a little bit.
Cool. So you've spoken a little bit about, obviously, you're kind of the conduit, I guess, maybe, between the SEO industry and Google. I'm really keen to understand how the internal PR team at Google feel about you.
Why is everyone laughing? I think we have a tricky role because in general, the PR teams, when you work at a bigger company, they like to prepare all the messaging. It's like, this is exactly what you say when someone asks this question. Mm-hmm. And we're often in a situation where something completely new comes out and people ask us about this, and we need to have some kind of answer that we can give them. So sometimes we come out and say something that might not be exactly what they had prepared or what they had thought like they would prepare. That makes it sometimes interesting, I think. We get some interesting emails sometimes. On a whole, I think it's working out fairly well, so it's not like we're fighting or anything. But there are also lots of questions where basically we either don't know exactly the answer or we don't know how Google would generally frame something like this, where we just have to say, well, I don't know. It's like, this is a new question, new type of topic, I don't know. Or maybe it's like a question about Google My Business or Google Analytics, where I think probably I know the answer, but I'm not the person to ask for that. So I'd say like, I don't know. And a lot of times when we say I don't know, it's not that like we have no clue what is happening here. It's just we don't know exactly how this would be framed externally.
Okay, cool. I think that's really, really interesting. Cool. I want to talk a bit about the search quality and engineering teams. I've asked you about kind of your role and like what success looks like for you. I'm really keen to understand a little bit more about how the search quality and engineering teams, like what are they trying to achieve, first of all, and how are they measured? How are
they measured? I think that's also something that changes over time. So. Mm-hmm. In particular, what we try to do with search is to make sure that information is accessible and useful, that it's findable, that it's in search you find relevant information that's valuable for what you're doing at the moment. Mm-hmm. And what I've been seeing anecdotally is that a lot of this shifts over time, so there's no one clear metric where we can say, well, this is the right metric to use. So in particular, in the beginning, or if you look at regions or languages where there's not a lot of content, you might use a metric like, do we even have an answer for this query as something to aim for? It's like, if we don't have an answer, then that's a failure on our side, where we can't just tell the user, like, we don't know, we have to give them something. So that's kind of an initial step. And then from there, it kind of grows a little bit in that we need to not just provide any answer that we can find, because a lot of times, like there's so much weird stuff on the internet that isn't really relevant or correct. And then you get into areas like medical content or content where you really care about the correctness of the content, where you have to say, well, we have so many different pages already on this topic, but which one is the right one that we should show to users?
Okay.
And that makes it a little bit trickier. So these metrics change over time. They evolve a bit how the ecosystem is evolving as well, and what the expectations are from users.
Sure. I mean, I think, like, obviously, I think everyone here can understand and appreciate the need to show accurate information, particularly for, I think Google dubbed it like your money or your life queries. So sure, I get the need to seek an authoritative response there. But thinking about like a more transactional query, for example, let's just say that you want to buy some contact lenses. How do you know if the result you've ranked first is the right one? Like if you've done a good job of ranking those results?
A lot of times we don't know, because for a lot of these queries, there is no objective right or wrong. There are essentially multiple answers that we could say this could make sense to show as a first result. And I think in particular for cases like that, it's useful for us to have those 10 blue links or 10 results in the search page, where it's really something like, we don't completely know what you're looking for. Are you looking for information on these contact lenses? Do you want to buy them? Do you want to compare them? Do you want to buy a specific brand?
Maybe but surely at that point, John, you would start using signals from users, right? You would start looking at which results are clicked through most frequently. Would you start looking at stuff like that at that point?
I don't think we would use that for direct ranking like that. We use signals like that to analyze the algorithms in general, because like across a million different search queries, we can figure out like which one tends to be more correct or not, depending on where people click. But for one specific query, for like a handful of pages, that's like, it can go in so many different directions. It's really...
Okay. I'll accept that for now.
Okay.
Just for now. It's about to get worse. Many sites, we sort of skirted around SERP features just then. So many sites have complained that SERP features like answer boxes, or people also ask those kind of position zero, are stealing, in inverted commas, their traffic. What's your view on this and the view from Google?
The view from Google. Wow, yeah, I wish I had my PR team here to help me.
I'm so glad they're not.
Are we out of time yet?
No, still not, no.
Okay, so I mean, the one thing I see with a lot of these things is that the web evolves, the user expectations evolve, things change over time, and it's something where if you as a website are essentially built on the model of like, I have this one line of text on my web page that is the only reason why people go there, and then they click on an ad to leave, then it might be over time that other people have the same line of text on their page. It might be over time that we learn like this is actually an objective answer to this question, so we can show it directly.
Yeah, I mean, it's not your answer though, is it? It's
well, if it's an
else's.
Objective answer, it's like, what is the speed of light?
Okay, I'm going to give you an example.
There's an objective answer.
Yeah, I'm going to give you an example.
Okay.
I'm being a bit mean now. I'll be nice again in a minute. A search term, yeah, I know, you don't believe me. Kelvin said I'd make you feel comfortable. I'm horrible. A search term like how to boil an egg, I think, is a really good example. And there's probably an objective right-wrong here, but the instructions for how to boil an egg are right there on the page in an answer box, right? So a user arguably has no need to click through to a website to actually read that. Problem is, you're serving ads on that page. So effectively, you're making money by selling ads against other people's content. Plus, you're removing the original content creator's ability to earn money from advertising. And you mentioned earlier, John, that we rely on this ecosystem, right? I as a content creator, I'm fine with you crawling and indexing my content because I think you're going to send me some traffic back, and I'm down with that. And I also like what you're doing, as a company, to help the right sorts of knowledge be more accessible to other people. But when you're removing my ability to earn a living, you can see like a line's crossed, no?
I don't know about like how to boil an egg. That seems like one of those questions where it's like, what are you going to write on a blog post on how to boil an egg that can't be summed up in 2 sentences?
But John, you didn't.
So I think that's like on the one hand there's that where a lot of this information is essentially objective information that like anyone can pick up. There's also I think a big aspect of these short answers have other value as well for the website in that we highlight the website, we show the branding of the website, we send them traffic there too, because a lot of these featured snippets, what I've seen is they're not complete answers. They're like more information on this topic. You can understand fairly quickly, is this website something that understands what they're talking about? And if so, you can go there and get more information. And what I also see is a lot of times these featured snippets help in a way that give the user information that they would just like pick up from that web page, where from the web page's point of view, it's not so much that they need that page view to like make a user happy, but rather they need to give that information to a user. So for example, like, I don't know, opening hours, for example. If someone is searching for opening hours, Google can show those opening hours, and Google is not taking anything away from that business by showing opening hours because they're just getting there a little bit faster. Or like how to connect an iPhone. And between meetings, I did a short tweet and I was like, yeah, we haven't been using this anymore. And then I ran off and had another meeting. And afterwards, Gary came to me, and Gary is, of course, the master of calm communications.
He really is.
So he came to me and was like, John, that was not good.
This is my favorite story ever. The idea, Gary going to somebody and going, your communication style there, mate, like, not cool. Like, from Gary. It's just adorable. I love this story so much. Keep going, John, please.
Yeah. So I think maybe I could have done that a little bit better.
Yeah.
It's something from my point of view, on the one hand, we wanted to bring across, there's no need to panic. Like, you don't need to run off and remove these annotations right away because your website will not explode because we haven't been using them for a while anyway.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, it's also kind of awkward for the ecosystem because we know you spend a lot of time putting these annotations on these pages. So
did you know that? Did you really know that, John? I feel like you didn't realize that. Okay. That's all right though.
Is time up yet?
No, it's still not.
Oh my God.
Also, Calvin's just said I get an extra 10 minutes because we're having such a lovely time. I want to ask you a little bit about links. So, many major UK news sites, examples include the Daily Mail and the Mirror, are now no following all external links, even those placed editorially. So I don't just mean they're no following through like advertorial. So they're doing that site-wide. Plus, we're also seeing other news sites like The Sun, The Independent, The Telegraph going no follow section by section, it would seem. So some sections you can get a followed link if a journalist writes about something that and they will link, and sometimes, most of the time though, they're no follow. How does this impact the link graph for Google?
Are you thinking too much about links, Hannah?
I don't know what you mean, John.
Okay, so I mean, on the one hand, this is definitely something that does affect our link graph. It does affect our ability to pick up, especially new and fresh content. So from that point of view, I think that's kind of a shame. I don't think that's really necessary. I think that's something where theoretically news sites could do that in a way that makes sense for the web, in that they could say, well, I researched this article, I wrote this information, and here's a good source, and link to that properly. I think that's kind of a part of the web overall. On the other hand, I also see how many SEOs try to go to these news sites like, I really need this link, I really need this link.
I think you're saying this is my fault, John.
No, like other SEOs.
Don't point at people now, John. Like we've just got over rel previous and next.
Okay.
Like,
No. But I can see how the news sites might say, well, it's like such a hassle dealing with all of these link issues. It's like we will try to solve it in a way that is like we'll just like solve it for us. And I think that's kind of short-sighted thinking, because being able to find useful content on the web, links kind of play a role in that. So that's something where if we're not able to find all of this cool new content, they're going to have a hard time finding that cool new content too. So it's kind of short-term thinking. But it would be hard for me at the same time to go to these sites and like say, well, you should just follow every link that you have in your editorial articles, because I know there's like all kinds of weird stories going on behind the scenes.
For clarity, I'm not suggesting that you should do that, although I'd love it, but I'm not suggesting that you do that. The thing that I am concerned about, though, is obviously, full disclosure, I'm a link builder, in case you haven't noticed. There are a limited number of authoritative sites on the web that you desperately, you do want links and coverage from for your clients. And particularly like in the UK, we're seeing like that shut down like markedly, like in the last 12 months. I feel like that's, and this, like I say, this is top tier sites. And it makes me wonder, I'm going to turn that into a question, because this is rambling. Links are still a ranking factor though, right? You still use links as a ranking factor?
We still use links.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not the only ranking factor.
Of course
So
not.
like just focusing on links, I don't think that makes sense at
No,
all.
absolutely not.
But like we definitely use links to recognize new content.
So if you've then got like effectively like a hole, a very authoritative hole in your link graph, how is that going to affect? Question, like how is that going to affect how links are used as a ranking factor, or will it?
I don't know. We'll see. I mean, it's one of those things also where I see a lot of times the sites that big news sites write about are sites that already have links anyway. So it's rare that we wouldn't be able to find any of that new content. So I don't think everything will fall apart if that happens, or when that happens. But it does make it a little bit harder for us.
Yeah.
So it's kind of tricky, but we also have lots of other signals that we look at. So trying to figure out how relevant the page is not just based on the links.
Of course not. Of course not. Okay, I'm going to move on.
All right.
You're going to love this one, John. Late last week, there was a technical issue which caused many URLs to be removed from the Google index. Can you talk a little about what the issue was?
I think there was an issue with the links.
Is it because of the Daily Mail and the Mirror no following? Is that what it was?
Was that about the same time?
Yeah.
Okay. No. Okay. No. As far as I know, that was purely just a technical issue on our side. So there was no update or nothing fancy happening.
There's a bunch of theories going around.
What kind of theories?
Oh, you read Twitter, John, surely.
Unfortunately. No, but...
Was it an update?
No. No. I mean, like, we make updates all the time. So something...
Was it an update you rolled back real fast?
Everything breaking? No.
Because like if I roll something out for a client site and it like screws everything up really badly, what I tend to do is roll it back. Like,
It's kind of hard with like a search index.
True.
So,
Okay, I'm just teasing you.
So
tell me what happens internally at Google in cases like this.
So what happened there is there was just some technical issue that caused a problem with the index, and then while fixing it, something else broke.
Okay.
It's like, I don't know, have you ever had anything break?
Never.
People's
I'm
sites?
really good.
Yeah.
Really good at stuff. All the
Yeah.
stuff. Okay.
We try to make sure that the stuff that breaks on our side doesn't break in a visible way, but sometimes...
Yeah, I try and do that
sometimes it
too.
does.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Can you please just share with the audience what your internal alert system is called?
No.
Oh, come on! I'm going to do it otherwise. I wrote it down.
No, you didn't.
I did.
Oh my god.
It's got a smiley face next to it.
Oh my god.
They've got this internal alert system at Google for stuff like this, and it's called OMG. Isn't that delightful? I was so delighted by this. Okay, seriously though, John, can you confirm that the issue is now resolved?
It's fixed.
It's fixed. It's all right. I said that. The PR team they can never put that on you. It's fine. Okay. So the issue is now fixed.
It's fixed.
Definitely fixed. It's not going to happen again tomorrow.
I have no idea what will happen tomorrow.
I know, me too.
Like this issue is fixed. So
Okay. What should people do?
What should people do?
What should people do if...
Panic. What was the question?
Calm down, dear. What should people do if their URLs still aren't indexed? So you're saying it's fixed, but you're like, my category page, and it's a money page where I make an awful lot of money. It's still not indexed. What do you do?
Okay, you don't need to panic.
What do you do though?
So, I mean, in general, the web is really big, so we can't crawl and index everything on the web. So it can happen that there are pages on any website that aren't indexed. I think that's pretty much a normal situation. And the general approach that you would take there is kind of simple. In Search Console, you can look up that URL, and you can submit that to indexing.
Okay.
So on a per page basis, that's pretty easy to do. If you have a lot of URLs, you can use the sitemap file, submit that. That works fairly well.
Okay.
That's what people were doing during this outage, where it's like some of these URLs were dropping.
It's what some people were doing, John. Like, it's not what all the sites on the internet were doing. Okay, so I'm being mean to you again. I'm going to try and be nice. Calvin, am I allowed to go on for a bit too long?
A little.
Okay, thanks. If anybody wants to go, you can go. It's okay. I'm having a nice time. I'm just gonna do 2 more questions. Voice search reporting. I know that you get asked an awful lot about voice search query reports. What challenges are Google facing when it comes to reporting on voice search?
I think voice search is a really tricky topic because there's so many different things that people see under kind of the umbrella of voice search. I think in general, we talk about voice search a lot at Google. The SEO community talks about voice search a lot, but there's very little common understanding of what is actually meant with voice search. So that includes things like going to your Alexa device and saying like, I'd like to set a timer for 10 minutes. That's a voice search, essentially. Listening to music is essentially a query that you do through one of these devices. At the same time, you could take your phone, you can open up Google and click on the microphone button and say, like, I would like to buy blue shoes. And that's also voice search. So all of these different things essentially fall into this giant umbrella of voice search. But at the same time, like, if you don't really know exactly what you want to measure, you'll get a number that isn't really useful. So if Google came out and said there are, I don't know, how many million voice searches a day, like, what would that number mean to you? It's really hard to kind of quantify. And at the same time, the things that a lot of sites kind of focus on are the normal search results, where someone goes to their phone, clicks the microphone, and says blue shoes. And essentially that's not a voice query from my point of view, it's just a different kind of keyboard. where
Yes,
you're entering keywords into the normal interface. So I think the number one thing that I always tell people to do is, first of all, to get one of these assistant devices. It doesn't matter like which one you take, which company is behind it, but just to really get an understanding of these kind of voice interactions with assistant devices, what their limitations are, what kind of queries you end up making on a day-to-day basis, so that you understand a little bit more like where would my site potentially fit in, the content that I have. Is there something that people would ask that a device like this would be able to give them an answer on? Or is my content so complex that people need to read a whole page of text to understand what it's about? So it's not easy. And I think on the one hand, it would be easy for us to say like this is a number, but I think from an SEO point of view,
I don't think anybody wants to know like this is the number of voice search queries. I think like what we really want is like voice search keyword volume. I think it's more, it's literally, it's very granular. And my understanding is like, well, my limited understanding is that you don't have that, right? It's not, how do you know if somebody is just using voice on their phone? Like, do you even capture that? Is there a way for you to capture that?
I don't know.
No.
I think at the same time also like, what do you do with that information afterwards? So someone used it to like search for your website using voice, and they clicked on your result with a finger. Does that mean you should answer with like a synthetic voice, or like what would you change differently from a website? That's I think the other aspect where, from my point of view, I see it like, as like people are searching with voice. Obviously, these voice interactions are getting more and more common, but at the moment, I don't really know what you would do with those numbers if you knew, like, for my website, these and these queries are getting voice queries. What would I change at the moment? Because I think for the most part, if you make a website such that the information is easily accessible and useful for search engines and for users as well, then you don't need to do anything special for voice.
Well, you kind of do though. If it's a voice assistant, you kind of do, because you want to be the answer. Okay. Maybe.
Good, yeah, but I mean that also depends on the kind of content that you have. You wouldn't want Googlebot I don't know, the home.
Well, Gertrude,
the Google Home, reading off a page of text from your website.
No.
You kind of need to kind of figure out what kind of queries even make sense. And I think at the moment, it's not in a situation where you need those numbers. It's more like, where does my site actually fit in? Or is all of this voice stuff just a fad that will be gone next week?
But the reason that you're not providing us with the numbers is not because you don't think that we know what to do with them. The reason that you're not providing us with the numbers is because you don't have them, right?
Well, we have lots of metrics, but it's really hard to provide them in a way that they're actually useful.
That's meaningful.
Yeah, I mean that's the challenge we have with Search Console all the time. Where when we talk with the team, they're like, we have all of these fancy things that we could be showing on sites. You want everything?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like,
everything.
I've been collecting questions from people, and if I could sum them up, it would be like, when it comes to Google Search Console, like, just all of the things.
All of the things.
All of the reports and things.
Yeah, sure.
And tools as well.
I'm going to be the terrible person, Hannah, now. Sorry.
Okay.
I said a few minutes and then.
And then I've been.
But we can have a big round. I found that fascinating. I hope you found it fascinating as well. Thanks to both Hannah and John. I'm sure they will be around if you can grab them afterwards. So, what happens now? I'm going to thank you for more.